Hey guys, Marshall Sutcliffe here at Grand Prix Minneapolis. I'm with Conley Woods. Welcome, Conley.
Hello.
And we're going to be taking a look at kind of a crazy deck that you've brought here to battle with.
I mean, the name might be scary, but it's eggs. Let's be realistic.
It really is eggs, right?
It's got some bad connotations, but it's new age. It doesn't take as much. It's not as painful to watch or play. It's significantly more friendly for Magic Online environment, which is nice. But yeah, it's eggs.
Okay, but it's basically a new version of eggs. Now, eggs had a bunch of the key pieces banned, and we've seen it basically gone since that time. But it's back now. How does this deck work? And what are the cards that enable you to now keep playing this type of deck?
So the card that allows the deck to function is Krark-Clan Ironworks.
KCI.
Yes, KCI. Always been an extremely abusive engine that's kind of been sitting around waiting for somebody to do something with it. While Second Sunrise was in the format, there was not as much incentive because you have this 3-mana instant that just kind of wins the game for you over the course of whatever. But once you move to that being gone, your options of big return the graveyard to play effects are Face Reward, which is the 4-mana version of Second Sunrise, but only affects you, and then Open the Walls, which is a 6-mana version. Anyone that's played the original Eggs deck knows that getting to 6 mana off your Lotus Blooms alone, and then being able to cast Open the Vaults or whatever, very, very difficult to accomplish. So that deck only ran Second Sunrise and Face Reward for the most part. Once you switch those engines to become a little more expensive, you need a mana engine that can make sure you don't stumble, and also weeding out the fact that Eggs would often have to like shuffle something in his deck, then draw to find it, then shuffle it in again, and there was always a slight chance that it would just whiff and not draw that card. Turning the combo into something that's 100% reliable once you're going off is something that I was kind of inspired by, so I kind of took the same shell, wiped it away, and then made it all about Krark-Clan Ironworks.
All right, now KCI, it says it's an artifact that says sacrifice an artifact to add 2 colorless mana to your mana pool. So you can generate huge amounts of mana with this.
Yes, our win condition is actually Banefire, which we'll probably talk a little bit more about later. But there are situations where your opponent will have like a Relic of Genesis or something in play, and you don't have 2 face rewards to play around it. So you will just cast your Krark-Clan Ironworks and then sacrifice your board full of artifacts, just generate 20 mana on the spot and Banefire them.
Okay, and you can
so
just
you don't
do it
even
that
need
way.
to combo it out sometimes.
Okay, now speaking of the combo, you've got a couple of different ways to find your combo pieces. You've got Thoughtcast and Reshape.
Yep. So the deck is, a majority of it is artifacts. We have artifact lands, artifact moxes to make mana, Lotus Blooms, a whole bunch of trinkets. So things like Thoughtcast are generally going to be 1 or 2 mana.
Okay.
And when you compare those to cards that Storm has to run to find its combo pieces, Serum Visions and Sleight of Hand, drawing 2 cards is significantly better for 1 mana than either of those effects. However, it's very niche and not a lot of decks can abuse that.
Right.
However, in this deck, Thoughtcast allows you to be to find your combo, but also just to like keep your hand full during turns where you're setting things up. Whereas Serum Visions is specifically about finding a specific thing. Thoughtcast will just be like, oh, I unmulliganed by casting a Thoughtcast, or I've cast 2 Thoughtcasts this game, and now I have 2 copies of Face Reward in my hand that you have to play around. Or it just does a lot of things where it puts pressure on your opponent, and it's significantly better when you're not comboing off than Serum Visions is.
Okay. Now I'm looking over here at these artifacts that you mentioned. So you've got some Darksteel Citadels. Those represent some artifacts for you, but it looks like the key group is up here in this main one. I see.
So Terrarion.
Terrarion, thank you. Chromatic Sphere, Chromatic Star, and Ichor Wellspring.
Yes, so this is kind of like the engine of the deck that works with with Krark-Clan Ironworks. What you're trying to do is have things that get you card advantage and get you mana. So when you sacrifice a Chromatic Star, a Terrarion, or an Ichor Wellspring, they all draw you a card while netting you 2 mana off Krark-Clan Ironworks, which allows you to cycle through your deck, use things like Face Reward and Open the Vaults to get those back, and continue the cycle. In addition to that, you have a backdoor mana engine that you occasionally use of Lotus Blooms, which you generally don't want to see in your opening hand. That's why there's only 2 copies, but you will reshape for quite often. So you'll play a turn 2 Ichor Wellspring, and then on turn 3 reshape it for a Lotus Bloom, drawing a card because it went to the graveyard. And now all of a sudden you have 4 mana. 4 mana is convenient enough for your Krark-Clan Ironworks. You cast this off of your Lotus Bloom, you sack a bunch of things, start going off, cast a Face Reward. Not only do you get back all the things you sacrificed to Krark-Clan Ironworks, but you get back the Ichor Wellspring that you sacrificed to reshape, and you get back your Lotus Bloom, and then it's like...
And then you've got a full grip and a ton of mana, and then it's done. Yeah.
So it has basically those 2 mana engines. Before, the deck had to work 100% off of Lotus Bloom, which just makes it a little weak to things like Ancient Grudge under upkeep or Remand and things like that. But now with Krark-Clan Ironworks, all of these things sitting in play are always threats. So you will just play a bunch of... Storm will use things like Serum Visions and Sleight of Hand to build up its hand. Our hand literally sits in play. If you just have 10 artifacts that all cantrip when you're in play, every time you present a Krark-Clan Ironworks, you're like, I have to counter this. It's not even a choice. Right. And you have so many ways to sneak it through between just casting it, bringing it back with Open the Vaults, tutoring for it with Reshape, casting multiple in a turn. So there's all all kinds of ways. Basically, just get this artifact in play, and then the game's over.
Okay. Now, let's talk about your win conditions. I see
Sure.
that you have a singleton Banefire. Also, there's a Codex Shredder here, which I think I've passed that in draft about 100
That's
times.
fair.
What is that doing here?
So Codex Shredder is a couple things. It is a regrowth, first and foremost, that you can 2 or 4 with Reshape, so you only need it as a 1-of.
Okay.
There's a couple little combos you can do. The first thing is you can mill yourself just to get cards in your yard, just set up and open the vaults. Because open the vaults is different than face reward, where the cards don't have to go to the graveyard that turn, they just have to be in your graveyard.
Oh, okay.
You can actually just mill things and just get them in the yard for open the vaults. The other thing this allows you to do is with enough mana, 9 mana in total, you can pay the 5, sacrifice this, return a face reward from your graveyard to play, then cast a face reward, which will conveniently return your Codex Shredder to play. So this sets up an infinite loop.
Now you can just loop?
Yeah, which is nice because A, you can just show your opponent this, like, hey, I have an infinite loop, I'm generating mana with Krark-Clan Ironworks, I will always have 9 mana, I'm going to draw through my deck till I find this Banefire and kill you. So it's really nice, you don't have to keep stalling and shuffling and whatnot. But also, it'll get you out of a lot of tough spots. So let's say I'm bricking off my draw steps, I'm just not finding another face reward. If I find a Reshape with just enough mana, I can Reshape for Codex Shredder, which now turns into a face reward. So it allows Reshape to be a different component of the deck without just being a mana engine.
Okay, now talk to us about Banefire. I only see one of them here.
Yep.
Is there a backup plan for this deck?
Not in the
like
main
if
deck.
you get Thoughtseize and this
You
goes
Codex
up-
Shredder back.
You just get it back with
yeah.
Codex Shredder. Okay.
The only way you get hurt, and occasionally this will happen, is they will Thoughtseize it and then like extirpate it or Scavenging Ooze it away. Very rare that happens because that means A, you had to have this in your hand, which you don't want until you're winning, and B, that they had a graveyard removal and you didn't have a way to like trick them and get it back with Codex Shredder.
Right.
Those spots you obviously would prefer to avoid, but it will come up on occasion. In the sideboard, there is a Pyrite Spellbomb, which is an alternate way to win. But the main reason Banefire is chosen in the main deck are for 2 reasons. One, the play I was talking about, where I just have 15 artifacts in play,
Yeah.
I cast a Krark-Clan Ironworks, and I don't need a combo or do anything, I just sack everything and they're dead.
Yes.
And the other reason is it gets through all counter magic, so there's no worries about them remanning, there's no worries about them, I mean, obviously you can Mind Break Trap or whatever,
Sure.
but no Cryptic Command or whatever, it's just like, okay, you've let enough stuff go, here's this lethal spell. So that's the reasons you choose it. You could choose there's plenty of other options, but I think this is the easiest to wrap your mind around while you're playing the deck.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take a lot of, like, I've used Grinding Station before, and that you get
Look,
like
as somebody
keeping
who
triggers.
does coverage for a living, thank you.
Yes.
This is a lot more easy.
it
to
makes
be
it
like,
much easier
Oh,
on-
he just Banefired him for 30. That was sweet.
Much more friendly on Moto. You can play a match in a game in 5 minutes and combo off completely, and it'll be totally fine. So I think this was a pretty big improvement switching to this. I'm not a big fan of Emrakul because it doesn't kill them right away. You don't generally want to be shuffling your graveyard into your deck anyway, except for very weird situations. The Spellbomb in the sideboard was an Emrakul for a while, but I think that Banefire and Spellbomb are the 2 best options. This allows you to kill like Ethersworn Canonist or Gaddock Teague and you could Reshape for it, which is
Sure.
really nice.
Oh, nice.
So
now,
or Reshape, not with Gaddock Teague, obviously.
right. So we talk in Modern. We talk a lot about a critical turn, right? Like
Yep.
they don't want turn 3 combo decks. Turn 4 combo decks are okay. Where does this one fall in that spectrum?
This is generally a turn 3 combo deck is your goal. Basically, what we're looking to do is the turn that we can cast Krark-Clan Ironworks, we win. So that's kind of our goal. So you look at, there's a couple of things in the deck that are specifically catered to casting out on turn 3. Mox Opal is the big one. Once that got, once a legend rule changed, being able to run 4 of those in your deck's awesome. Previously, before the legend rule, if you had 2 out, you're like, okay, they're dead or whatever, and then you cast face reward or open the vaults, and they would just die instantly as well. So they were never useful. But now you get to keep one in play, tap it, sack it to Krark-Clan Ironworks, go off, do things, cool things like that, and it lets you cast this on turn 3. The other card is one of Mindstone, which acts as the kind of 5th Mox Opal, allowing you to cast turn 3 Krark-Clan Ironworks. And if you notice, we actually cut down to 2 Lotus Blooms because we don't want to be a turn 4 deck. Like that card. In some matchups, you obviously need to pace yourself and play around counter magic and whatnot. Lotus Bloom's excellent there, but in any matchup where you're trying to go very quickly, Lotus Bloom on the draw in your opening end's pretty bad, and on the play, sometimes you will just try to win the turn before it comes into play.
Okay, now, are you generally ignoring what your opponent's doing? I mean, is there any... This doesn't look very interactive.
Sure. Not the most interactive. You do need to play around counter magic, of course, and Thoughtseize, and any of their hate. Post-board, it gets a lot more interesting because they'll have a Relic of Genesis in play, and you need to set up a double face reward turn or something along those lines. Obviously, the one card you're 100% wanting to avoid is Stony Silence. If Stony Silence were popular, I would not advise you playing this deck because we have 3 Echoing Truths on the board, and that's the only way to deal with it.
Okay.
It is a nightmare. This deck specifically compared to normal eggs, we have Artifact Lands making mana, we have Artifact Moxes making mana, so like they've cast a Stony Silence, and there's a chance we can't even cast our Echoing Truth. Like it occasionally happens.
You lean on these 3 Adarkar Wastes pretty hard.
Yeah. So I would definitely suggest if you think Stony Silence is going to be popular, do not run this deck. but I think right now it's pretty low in general.
Have not seen him around.
So I figured this was a decent time to pull this out, and you are very proactive, you're very fast, and then, like I said, post-board you kind of start interacting with your opponent, you're casting silences, you're kind of choosing when to use those, you have a bunch of graveyard removal, a bunch of things you can tutor for, but yeah, you're definitely more interested in like, how quickly can I win?
Oh, this deck seems sweet, Conley. Thanks for taking the time to chat with us. For Conley Woods, I'm Marshall Sutcliffe.